Robert Clark Seger is a retired American singer, songwriter, and musician. As a locally successful Detroit area artist, he performed and recorded as Bob Seger and the last heard in the Bob Seger System throughout the 1960s, breaking through with his first album, Ramblin Gamblin Man, which contained his first national hit of the same name, in 1969. By the early 1970s, he had dropped the system from his recordings and continued to strive for broader success with various other bands. In 1973, he put together the Silver Bullet Band, with a group of Detroit area musicians, with whom he became most successful on the national level with the album Live Bullet, recorded live with the Silver Bullet Band in 1975 at Cobo Hall in Detroit, Michigan. In 1976, he achieved a national breakout with the studio album Night Moves. On his studio albums, he also worked extensively with the Alabama-based Muscle Shoals Rhythm Section, which appeared on several of Seger's best-selling singles and albums. A roots rocker with a classic raspy, powerful voice, Seger wrote and recorded songs that dealt with love, women, and blue-collar themes, and is one of the best-known examples of a heartland rock artist. He has recorded many hits, including Night Moves, Turn the Page, Main Street, Still the Same, Hollywood Nights, Against the Wind, You'll Accompany Me, Shame on the Moon, Roll Me Away, Like a Rock, and Shakedown, the last of which was written for the 1987 film Beverly Hills Cop 2 and topped the Billboard Hot 100 chart. He also co-wrote the Eagles' #1 hit Heartache Tonight, and his recording of old-time rock and roll was named one of the songs of the century in 2001. With a career spanning 6 decades, Seger has sold more than 75 million records worldwide, making him one of the world's best-selling artists of all time. Seger was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004 and the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2012. Seger was named Billboard's 2015 Legend of Live honoree at the 12th Annual Billboard Touring Conference and Awards, held November 18 to 19 at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. His farewell tour took place in 2018 and 2019. Seger was born at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, Michigan, the son of Charlotte and Stuart Seger. At age 5, he moved with his family to Ann Arbor. He had an older brother, George. Seger's father, a medical technician for Ford Motor Company, played several instruments, and Seger was exposed to music from an early age. Seger was also exposed to frequent arguments between his parents that disturbed the neighborhood at night. In 1956, when Seger was 10 years old, his father abandoned the family and moved to California. The remaining family soon lost their comfortable middle-class status and struggled financially. Seger attended Tappan Junior High School, now Tappan Middle School, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and graduated in 1963 from Ann Arbor High School, now known as Pioneer High School. He ran track and field in high school. Seger also went to Lincoln Park High School for a time. Regarding his early musical inspirations, Seger has stated, "Little Richard, he was the first one that really got to me. Little Richard and, of course, Elvis Presley. Come Go With Me by the Del Vikings, a hit in 1957, was the first record he bought." Bob Seger arrived on the Detroit music scene in 1961 fronting a 3-piece band called the Decibels. The band included Seger on guitar, piano, keyboards, and vocals, Pete Stanger on guitar, and R.B. Hunter on drums. All of the members attended Ann Arbor High. The Decibels recorded an acetate demo of a song called The Lonely One at Del Shannon's studio in 1961. As well as being Seger's first original song, The Lonely One was Seger's first song to be played on the radio, airing only once on an Ann Arbor radio station. In 2021, a recording of The Lonely One resurfaced, and was broadcast, with permission from Seger, twice on WCSX-FM in Detroit, on the mornings of March 15 and 16. After the Decibels disbanded, Seger joined the Town Criers, a 4-piece band with Seger on lead vocals, John Fliss on bass, Pep Perrine on drums, and Larry Mason on lead guitar. The Town Criers, covering songs like Louie Louie, began gaining a steady following. Meanwhile, Seger was listening to James Brown and said that, for him and his friends, Live at the Apollo was their favorite record following its release in 1963. Seger was also influenced by the music of the Beatles, once they hit American shores in 1964. In general, he and local musician friends such as Glenn Frey, later a member of the Eagles, bought into the premises of 1960s pop and rock radio, with its hook-driven hits. He later recalled himself and Frey thinking at the time, "You're nobody if you can't get on the radio." As the Town Criers began landing more gigs, Seger met a man named Doug Brown, backed by a band called the Omens. Seger joined Doug Brown and the Omens, who had a bigger following than the Town Criers. While Brown was the primary lead vocalist for the group, Seger would take the lead on some songs, covering R&B numbers. With this group, Seger first appeared on an officially released recording, the 1965 single TGIF backed with First Girl, credited to Doug Brown and the Omens. Seger later appeared on Doug Brown and the Omens' parody of Barry Sadler's song Ballad of the Green Berets, which was retitled Ballad of the Yellow Beret and Mock Draft Evaders. Soon after its release, Sadler and his record label threatened Brown and his band with a lawsuit, and the recording was withdrawn from the market. While Seger was a member of the Omens, he met his longtime manager Edward Punch Andrews, who at the time was partnered with Dave Leone running the Hideout franchise, which consisted of 4 club locations from Clawson to Rochester Hills, where local acts would play, and a small-scale record label. Seger began writing and producing for other acts that Punch was managing, such as the Mama Cats and the Mushrooms, with Frey. Seger and Brown were then approached by Punch and Leone to write a song for the Underdogs, another local band who recently had a hit with a song called Man in the Glass. Seger contributed a song called East Side Story, which was not successful. Seger decided to record East Side Story himself, and officially left the Omens, though he did retain Brown as a producer. As Bob Seger and the Last Heard, Seger released his version of the song with Hideout Records in January 1966, and it became his first big Detroit hit. The single, Back with East Side Sound, an instrumental version of East Side Story, sold 50,000 copies, mostly in the Detroit area, and led to a contract with Cameo Parkway Records. Though the name The Last Heard originally referred to the collection of Omens and town criers who recorded East Side Story with Seger, it soon became the name of Seger's permanent band, which consisted of former town crier Pep Perrine on drums, Carl Lagassa on guitar, and Dan Honecker on bass. Following East Side Story, the group released 4 more singles: the James Brown-inspired holiday single Sock It to Me Santa, the Dylan-esque Persecution Smith, Vagrant Winter, and perhaps the most notable, Heavy Music, released in 1967. Heavy Music, which sold even more copies than East Side Story, had the potential to break out nationally when Cameo Parkway suddenly went out of business. It was a top 100 hit in Canada, where it topped out on the national RPM charts at No. 82. In the US, it just missed the Hot 100, peaking on the bubbling under chart at No. 103. The song would stay in Seger's live act for many years to come. After Cameo Parkway folded, Seger and Punch began searching for a new label. In the spring of 1968, Bob Seger and the Last Heard signed with major label Capitol Records, turning down Motown Records, who offered more money than Capitol. Seger felt that Capitol was more appropriate for his genre than Motown. Capitol changed the name of the band to the Bob Seger System. In the transition between labels, guitarist Carl Lagassa left the band and keyboard player Bob Schultz joined. The System's first single with Capitol was the anti-war message song, which reflected a marked change in Seger's political attitudes from the Ballad of the Yellow Beret. The single was again a hit in Detroit and hit #1 on radio stations in Buffalo, New York, and Orlando, Florida, but went unnoticed almost everywhere else, and failed to chart nationally in the US. The single did, however, make the Canadian national charts, peaking at No. 79. While Alto Reed, Bob Seger's longtime saxophone player in the Silver Bullet Band, passed away Wednesday at age 72 after battling stage 4 colon cancer. Well guys, what are your thoughts? Do tell us. Thanks for watching.